Happy New Year's, everybody. Oh, man, I hope you guys had a safe New Year's. Hope you had a great time. I hope you put 2024 behind you if it was terrible and on to 2025 if 2024 was good. I hope you carry that momentum right in to 2025. Awesome. I don't turn my notifications off before I start a podcast. So ding, ding, ding. Listen, before we dive into this show, start of the new year, I'm back, baby. I'm back. It's very important. You guys know MTE is right around the corner. We do have a coupon code. It's DSP10. As always, if you go to Mobile Tech Expo, or actually, no, it's mte.live is the website now, mte.live. When you purchase your tickets, use the code DSP10. That'll save you 10% off of any of the packages, the education days, the expo days, the combination, whatever. Also, please, you guys know I'm going to ask for it. Golden Mike Award got hosed last year at Mobile Tech because of the shit show that happened. You guys technically had helped me win it by a landslide, from what Sheldon told me, but due to the controversy, they would not give it to me. So they give it to somebody else who probably didn't deserve it. So I need your guys' help this year to make sure that I take that thing home and that it sits right there behind me underneath the Noxie painting of the microphone. I don't know. Maybe I'll take that back to Noxie and have them paint that microphone gold. Probably not, but we'll see. So that's going to be mte.live/golden-mic-award, or you can just go to mte.live and you can click on the competitions or awards or something like that and nominate us. Again, as always, you do have to actually write a little blurb about what this podcast does for the industry. Good, bad, hopefully not bad. Hopefully it's all good. But yeah, so please go and do that. Your support means the world to me. It obviously helps us grow and yeah, have a good time with bragging rights on that. 4 years in, I need to win it. I need to win it. All right, now on to this episode. It's a special collaboration I did with Matt. You guys know Matty Arendt from Driven by Details podcast. I think it should be Driven by the Details, but it's Driven by Details. Matty and I sat down. We took kind of a look at the state of the industry, what these kind of private equity buyouts, what they mean for small businesses kind of going forward. There was a lot of that, in this last year or so where these companies are buying out some of our favorite brands, or I don't know, like I said in the podcast, maybe they're not your favorite brands. Maybe you don't even give a shit. But either way, there's private equity that's buying into the detailing industry. We also talk about the importance of ongoing training, building the confidence to know your worth when you're selling a package. You guys know I preach training all the time on here, how it's super important. And then we just this conversation's packed with some insight and some perspective and actionable advice and all these other cool words that ChatGPT wrote for me to say to you guys. So with that, let's get started. To me and Matty.
Well, I think that leads us into a good segue for this episode that we kind of wanted to talk about today. Because what are we going to talk about today, Alex Russell, on the Driven by the Solutions of the Detailing podcast?
No, come on now. You got to say it right. Driven by Details Solutions podcast. It's yours.
There
and
we
mine.
go.
There we go.
I was trying to mix it up
intentionally,
just a little different.
Yeah, you mix it up way too much. Listen, I should be asking you what we're going to be talking about. This was a little more of your idea, but the premise was you and I had a conversation about kind of what's going on in the detailing industry with some of these bigger businesses, conglomerates, corporations,
Let's
whatever
call
you
it
want to call them,
private equity, Alex.
private equity,
Private
um,
equity.
private equity, coming in and buying some of our favorite brands or some companies that maybe we like or we don't like. Who knows?
Sure.
Whatever. Um, and
Yes.
yeah, you and I were having this conversation, and you're like, man, this would be a great episode. So here we are talking about the little guys getting bought up by the big guys, I guess.
Well, I guess it's I want to warn everybody before we dive into this episode that I am on no sleep, and I don't know if that's going to be a good thing or a bad thing. Because me with no sleep right now is almost like I'm half drunk, so I might say some things that I might regret at a later date. But I think it could be a good thing to pull off the gloves and to go after this one because
Listen, I love it because so I'm I'm not on no sleep like you, but I have made the um I've made the decision that in 2025 I'm not doing sponsorship, or at least as of right now.
okay.
So don't have to have any gloves on because I don't have to worry about pissing off any sponsors. So the gloves come off, baby. Let's go.
Well, it's been something a theme I've been thinking a lot about, and and I'm a pretty empathetic person, and I guess my empathy maybe in some ways holds me back from being truly successful on a monetarily successful, right? Because when I step back and take a wide lens of my work life and balance and other things I've done, I already feel successful. Like I've done a lot of cool things. I'm not in debt, and we're building things, and I've done it with all my own money, and I've done it with all my on my own terms, my own way. So hearing you say that, you're like, hey, I'm saying no to the sponsorships this year. I think it's a good thing because it allows you to really do the things that you want to do without having to feel this commitment to somebody, or this like
Exactly.
like you just said, I'm going to let somebody down, or I might upset somebody. And I think that that's what this whole industry kind of has become. And I think a lot of us get into I think a lot of technicians that have gotten into the industry in some way, whether they're doing mobile stuff or doing high end work, they get into it and they might not necessarily have a 5 year or 6 year or 7 or 10 year plan. They're just trying to see what's in the foreground in front of them and going with it. And so by the time they reach year 5, they're kind of like, whoa, what's next? And I think it's been a difficult year for a lot of technicians. And in fact, I know it's been a difficult year for a lot of technicians because I've gotten a lot of direct messages from people and a lot of emails through the Gloss University page with people kind of seeking help. And after we did our first big group class at the new training facility, it was, we did that the last weekend of July. And from shortly after that, we created a little documentary video about the training that we did. And from about the middle of August to let's call it the beginning of October, right? So I don't know, a month and a half, 45 days, 50 days. I had gotten somewhere between 15 to 20 email requests regarding training. All right. Now, specifically, the box that they clicked was regarding kind of SEO and website help, right? Because I think the big theme that a lot of people were experiencing this year was getting new clients, getting new customers, right? And I have my own theories and beliefs on all this stuff, and I don't want to get into it. But with the Gloss University stuff that we do, and that I've always been about, we try to build up and support the technician, right? I'm not a SEO expert by any means. That's not my strength. I've hired people to help me with some of these things, so I know a little bit about it, but I also do not feel qualified to coach and guide somebody on what they should be doing with their SEO. And I'm not that type of person. I'm not going to take their money to help them in something that I don't feel very skilled in doing, right?
Yeah.
But I believe it just showcased the truth behind a lot of this stuff. I mean, I talked to guys that were in business for 15 years and they're like, hey man, the phone isn't rang. People aren't calling. So I think it's just the industry's going through this kind of like reset phase once again. Now we can't rule off that it was an election year, and people all across the map were tightening the belt, and car care and the luxury services are not at the forefront in an election year.
Absolutely. I mean, it's the same as I feel like, in 2020 was very similar. I mean, and realistically, everybody I've talked to that is way smarter than me in financial stuff it's always election years. Things get wokey because like you just said, right? Like the belt is tightening because don't know which way it's going to go. Is it going to go the way we want it to go? Is it going to go like the way we don't want it to go? Like,
Sure.
are we going to have money? Or are we not going to have money? So, and then again, you're right. I mean, we are a luxury, business. I've told plenty of my clients before, if I didn't, do this, I don't think my cars would be, there's no way. I mean, granted, now that I know what I know, like, trust me, I would want to spend $2,000 or whatever to have my car ceramic coated.
Sure.
Would I? Probably not. I'd probably still be running it through the car wash, doing a wax on it every, however many months and whatever. So,
sure.
So yeah, I mean, we definitely are luxury. We definitely are, on the bottom of the list of things that, need to get done because that's, it's more of a want. Do you need your car to be clean? No, absolutely not. I mean, it's proven every day when you drive down the road and you see cars, you're like, oh my God, like how, it's a want. You have to want to have your car clean. You have to want to have a nice and shiny car, perfect paint, all that stuff. Because trust me, I see plenty of black cars going down the road that you're just like, oh my God,
right.
Like, but man, it's clean. What are you talking about?
That's the best. I love the Instagram. I love being on Instagram and seeing like the community when they spot a car that looks terrible. And the guys are grabbing photos of it. They're like, look at this one.
But meanwhile, that person's like, hey, my car's clean. Like what?
Yeah, I think we're starting to really see some just difficult challenges, and I have a lot of ideas, but I also think it's difficult to try to rally everybody together, right? And I don't, man, I don't even really know where to start with this whole thing. I mean, we want to definitely talk about private equity coming into the industry.
Absolutely.
and what might happen with all that stuff and what is already happening with that stuff. But when you think about auto car care and auto detailing and it's small business, man, right?
Yeah.
All these guys, like, look at me. I don't have any employees. It's just me.
Yeah.
And some of our other industry peers would say that that's a failure, right? I've heard other people tell me, right, that are in the industry, like, well, you're not going to succeed until you have employees underneath you.
You're missing out on money because if you added an employee, now you're adding more cars you can do, right? If you add another employee, you can add more cars you can do, right? Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Okay.
But I think the technician, you got to ask yourself, why you're getting into this industry in the first place, or what drove you to get into the industry in the first place. For me, my story, anybody that's listened to the Driven by Details, I talk about it all the time. I mean, I kind of preach the same thing over and over, but I wanted to get into the detailing business so I can be in control of my schedule and my time, right? Here we are. It's wintertime. We're ending one year and beginning a new. And I wanted to have this time off to chase the snow, to chase one of my other passions, because not a lot of people want their car beautified and looking its absolute best in the middle of January and February here in the Midwest. That's just a fact. We're more car washing, and that's fine. But it gave me the space to step away from work, and I'm so blessed that I have that opportunity to just like hit the switch and step away from it. So like, listening to somebody else in the industry tell me that I should be doing this when I know in my heart that I want to be doing this, your version of success is different than my version of success. And that's fine. Right. So I think going back to what I originally said, when you get into this industry, you got to figure out really why you wanted to get into it in the first place, So I got into the industry, and now, I mean, I've always been in the industry, but when I mean got into being a full-time service provider versus kind of like a sales technician, it opened up a lot of new doors for me. And now I'm kind of like living in that room or that arena after I've made all these new connections and all that type of stuff. And so looking back, thinking of my sales career, all the people that were my own customers are small business, small body shops, small car washes, small detail centers, and then, even your car dealerships. I mean, you think of a car dealership as a big business, but generally a lot of the car dealers that I dealt with were independents. They own one or two stores, family owned business, still small business.
Yeah.
Right? Still small business. So I think getting into the industry, you got to figure out why you want to get into it in the first place. But I also think with the cost of living and the way everything has changed, something has been pretty obvious to me as of recently is like, standard. How do I say this? Not standard, but your daily detailing, your everyday detailing. Because I don't want to degrade those guys. I mean, that's almost more. I don't want to use the word important, but more consistent, right?
Yeah.
The daily details, the car care, the car cleaning, that's happening all the time. Yeah, there's a lot of guys doing high end stuff, but that's a smaller percentage, right? The
Right.
car cleaning, the car detailing, that stuff is going on all the time. But I kind of think now that, if I were to try to use those metrics, those numbers for a smaller price point, let's just use an easy number and say $300, right? I was going to be charging a $300 service. It's difficult to make good money when you're just charging $300,
Right.
right? And I want to tie this whole thing into kind of what's going on in the car wash industry too, because we started out saying that private equity is coming into the industry, and these price points that we see in the detailing world, I still believe are just too low. They're very low, right? Even just for like basic interior, exterior detailing, I was just cruising around a little bit on Facebook Marketplace, looking at vehicles and just checking out some different things. And I typed in auto detailing just to see what came up. And I never done that before, right? I've never I've never done that before.
Quickest way to make you mad in the morning.
Oh my God. I was just like, there was a bunch of ads that said free.
Yep.
But I encourage everybody that's listening to this podcast, go to your Facebook, type in Facebook Marketplace, go to auto detailing and see what comes up. And I think the the median number that kept coming up that I noticed was $150. And I'm just like, and we keep talking about this whole thing with price. We keep talking about the price of the service. At least I should say I keep talking about it, because it's kind of become like a little pimple on my ass, I should say. Because it's just like I don't want to keep thinking about it, but it just starts to annoy me. And I really feel bad for the guys that are kind of doing the daily details, that are stuck in the trenches, that are struggling to get to that next level,
Yeah.
because it's difficult. It's difficult.
Well,
And
I think a lot of it too is confidence, right? You have to have confidence to be able to charge those prices, and that's the thing that, I've talked plenty on my podcast, and it was hard. I mean, and granted, it comes from experience, because when I left the car wash, I was used to car wash prices,
yeah,
um, and having that confidence of, is somebody going to really pay me even $1,200 for a ceramic coating?
sure.
Like they go to the car wash and get a, full detail buff job and everything for $299. They're just getting a wax. And so the confidence, I feel like, especially with new people coming into the industry, or these fly by nights or whatever, is they don't know. And it's like, oh my God, is somebody really going to pay that much money? And
Right.
that's where I think detailing industry has gotten it wrong. Is I feel like we're still stuck on 1970s, 1980s car wash pricing.
Yeah.
And the price of gas has gone up exponentially. The price of milk, the price of everything, I feel, has gone up crazy numbers.
Sure.
And we say crazy numbers, right? But realistically, it's just the evolution of inflation, right?
Yeah.
But why are detailers, quote unquote, car wash guys still charging $150 for a full detail? That's the thing that I don't understand. And that's where I think, kind of tying into this private equity, these big conglomerates or things like that, definitely I saw it in the car wash industry, working for smaller mom and pop kind of car washes that maybe only had one or two locations,
Sure.
and then being bought by a big giant corporation.
Yep.
Kind of going back to your thing of, you need more employees, right? Well, yeah, okay, so if I had 5 employees, I could do that $150 job in a fifth of the time, right? So now I can stack on 5 $150 jobs, and with 5 employees, make make a lot of money in a day, essentially, or whatever, right? And that's how I think the corporations look at it, or is hey, we'll buy we'll buy all this stuff, because the more of it we have, we can charge less, but we're making more.
Yep.
Now, a guy like you and I, to do a $150 detail that's going to take us, I don't know, 10 hours, let's just say, right? 8 hours or whatever. We made $150 in that day. Doesn't work. We have to charge 700, 800, 900, whatever dollars on that job to be able to make the equivalent.
Yep.
So that's where I think a lot of the pricing kind of comes from, is the confidence of just saying, you know what, this is going to take me X amount of hours, and for $150, by the time I, and here's the other thing I think, and, tell me I'm wrong if I'm wrong, but a lot of the mobile guys, and I'll kind of single out the mobile guys, unfortunately, because they're typically the ones that are charging those lower end pricings. They look at it as like, well, I've got a truck and I've got a van and, or whatever. I'm not paying for rent. I'm not paying for electric, but you're paying gas, insurance, car note.
Yeah.
You're still paying all the same stuff. You just don't think you are, right? And I think that kind of comes into it a little too, is people just don't have the knowledge to know
Absolutely.
what is really like. Okay, so I made this $150 on this detail, but how much was chemical costs? How much was overhead? How much was whatever? And then what did I make labor wise at the end? And and I've had customers ask me about that, and I tell them, like, look, by the time I'm all said and done, I might have made $15 off that job. If I'm going to make $15, I'm going to go to McDonald's and flip burgers and make that every hour. Sorry, I'm just not charging that price. So I think confidence also has a key in those pricing as well.
Well, it's everything. I mean, you're going to get me riled up here, Alex Russell. I'm ready to,
Listen,
I'm no sleep. I'm like,
controversy sells listens, and
well,
that's what we need.
I'm going to tell you this. This is a quote I saw many years ago, and I'll never forget it because I believe it's true, and it's helped me out so much in the last couple of years. The quote goes something like this: "It's half of the world's problems stem from saying yes too quickly and no not soon enough." Right? Yep. And so to tie it back into confidence, I agree with you 1,000%. If you've watched any of the stuff that my message and my send off when we do the Gloss University trainings, and I say it in the video, you're going to leave this place feeling inspired and confident, right? Yeah. Those two things together, right? Inspiration and confidence, because that's something that people can feel, right? And what I mean by that is that, like, a customer, right? So if I'm seeking you out and I know nothing really about this detailing thing, and you start explaining things to me and talking to me about this, and you're like excited and you're confident, like the person that's going to pay you for the service, they can recognize that.
Yeah.
You know, the bullshit meter is a little higher these days. So like, if you don't know what you're talking about, you don't know what you're talking about. And even though you might do a good job, doesn't mean you're not leaving money on the table. And I think people are often afraid of, possibly a rejection. But I also think that in educating a customer, the sales process is a little longer, and I think detail technicians tend to get a little lazy, and they don't want to work as hard for the sale. And I like being challenged. I love when people ask me questions, right? Because fortunately for me, I have the answers, and I know what they need to. I know what they need, whether they want to hear it or not. I know how to deliver that message in a professional manner. So my point with this is that, like, kind of that back and forth banter about deciding what we're actually going to do to one person's vehicle and what the price might be, those rebuttals and those negative or difficult, I don't want to use the word negative, but difficult interactions, they drive change, right? They are going to help you get better for the next sale and get better for the next one and get better for the next one. So these, I agree with you 1,000% that confidence is everything, because you have to be confident in your abilities. And if you're not confident in your abilities, you probably should be in a different industry, or maybe just have a 9-to-5 job and work for somebody that you don't have to think that hard.
Right.
Because you're leaving money on the table, and it happens all the time. And I think when you look at, you'd mentioned that, we're still stuck in the 1970s stuff with the car wash and detailing thing. And it's totally true. It's a very complex thing to unpack. Excuse me. And I'm still learning how to fight this on a kind of a more of a, I don't want to use the word corporate level, but kind of more of a business level, because I think a lot of that stuff stems from the OEMs. I've said this many times in the podcast over the years that, I've always believed that the price of the detail is not really going to change until the used car managers' pay plans change. Because really, when you look at the OEMs, the volume stores, guys that are buying and selling lots of cars, a lot of those managers, they used to get paid on gross profit. And so if we, if I'm the used car manager for a dealership, and we sell 200 new cars a month and say 200 used cars, right? Well, if I got to recondition 200 used cars, when I mean recondition, not even just detailing, but if I got to pull dents, if I got to touch up the glass repair, we got to spray the bumper, this car needs tires, it needs brakes, right? We multiply all of those things by 200. Your payout at the end of the month could be pretty significant, right? Like what they're paying to get these vehicles ready to be sold. So it becomes this whole, let's get it as cheap as we can. And now I'm the used car manager, and I'm going to manipulate all my vendors. I'm going to squeeze the glass guy. I'm going to squeeze the dent guy. I'm going to squeeze this guy.
Volume.
Right?
I'm going to give you so many cars.
Yep.
It's going to keep you busy forever. But
so
I need it.
You squeeze. You squeeze everybody. Everybody gets squeezed the whole way through. Mm-hmm. Everyone. And so what's slowly starting to change, and I'm watching this happen in real time, is that the used car managers, they're still getting paid a good buck, but they're not getting paid the huge margins that they were, salaries that they were before, because these guys are paid off gross profit. So if they spent, let's just say $200,000 to recondition these cars versus $125,000, well, that extra money goes in the used car manager's pocket, and he gets his fat paycheck. But what's happening with used cars now is that since the pandemic, there's a lot of problems. Specifically, the cost of goods are more, and there's not a lot of good used cars on the market. Everything's trashed, everything's beat. So now these guys, they get a car that comes in from auction or on trade, it's got 80,000 miles. They got to dump a ton of money into it. It's on the mechanical side alone. Forget reconditioning. It's like, I'm watching this play out at one of our customer stores. It's just like, man, they're buying all these cars to sell, they're 3,000 used cars a month, and they're waiting on parts, and so they can't recondition the car because the car is stalled in mechanical. Then it goes from mechanical, and all of a sudden it's like the boomerang. It's like, hey, we got the car fixed. You got to get this thing. We got to sell. So then it's like they got 30 minutes to do the best detail job they can, to get the car ready for sale. So it's I think that the mentality of the people at the top, they're more sales driven, and they don't, which is fine. You work for a dealership, you should be sales driven, but they're also completely out of touch with what's really needed and what's really going on in the back with the reconditioning department. So it's created a big mess, and man, I wish I had a crystal ball and I wish I knew how to fix the problem. But I think we're here in my local market in the Midwest. We've been able to make some small change, right? Big change happens small. And we've seen some positive influence. I've been able to help a couple of our customers, and we've been able to double their output, reduce their part numbers, and put out a better product and doing all this stuff. And so seeing that happen in real time is very inspiring to me. But that's a few locations out of, thousands and thousands of places, So it's frightening to me, Alex. Very scary.
Well, and I think it kind of goes back a little bit, like you were saying, right? Like, the dealerships used to be mom and pop. They'd start out with one, maybe grab a couple or something like that, and there's still a few of those out there. I feel, and what I noticed the difference between those and kind of tying back into our topic a little bit with the corporate is what you just said right there, right? Is sometimes in the smaller, single owned dealerships or businesses like that, everybody's taken care of.
Yep.
Right. So, hey, you know what? This one needs a really good detail on it, man. Like, we'll spend the money on it.
Mm-hmm.
But on the corporate side, and you got, the bean counters, as they say,
the men in suits,
number crunchers, and they're like, whoa, and so they can't, and I've seen that through, the businesses that I've worked for before they got bought out. I've seen it with, even my clients that own businesses. I have a really good client who owned an aerial lift company up until the last month. And I mean, I've been taking care of him since the car wash. So probably 13 or 14 years now. And not only did he treat me like family, but he treated his employees like family. Like, there wasn't a lot of turnover. Every time I would go there to pick up a car or pick up a vehicle or whatever, it was always the same people.
Sure.
And now he sold it to a big, giant conglomerate chain.
Yeah.
And I go in there now and like half the staff is gone. It's and the people that are there kind of feel a little on edge that, like, okay, what happens after the full transition is done and over with? Like, what's going to happen with me? Am I still going to have a job or whatever? So yeah, I mean, I think when you add private equity or corporations or conglomerates, whatever term you want to use, it all becomes about money at that point and not about the end user, the client.
Yep.
And then that's when you start getting into these, pinch and pennies, or we're not going to spend as much money on this, or we're not going to do this as good, or whatever.
Yeah. Sell out. I mean, I think we're seeing a lot of that. I mean, like, when you look at the YouTube influencers, right? We've seen a lot of the YouTube influencers now that they've sold out. They don't tell you that. And we know that a little bit behind the scenes on what's going on. And I don't want to single people out, but what ends up happening is, like, I kind of touched on this when I was talking about the $300 detail, right?
Mm-hmm.
You get in, I probably now just got an idea to create a survey to figure out why most of the people in the industry that are in the industry got into it, right? But I'd be curious, like, I think you get into it, I got into it to basically acquire more freedom, right? Fortunately for me, I'm a sales guy. I'm skilled. I've been in the industry a long time. So it was a smoother transition for me, right? It wasn't,
Right.
I started from nothing with my service business, but I already had the skills to back all that stuff up and I already knew how to sell. So the timeline was shorter for me. But, when you look at this, I mean, even for me, like my goal was to get to my average ticket to be $2,000 a car, do 100 of those a year. And, I could work basically, let's just say 2 or 2.5 days. I work 250 days a year and, generate $200,000 in revenue. And I'm good with that number. Like my wife earns good. Like I want to travel, man. So if my wife can earn and I can earn and we can together bring in a good income, we could take these 100 days that we're not working and travel. You know what I mean? And so that was it for me. So what I'm trying to say is that, I'm right there. I've hit my ceiling of where I'm at on my service business, right? So now would be that point where if do I bring in an employee and do I do all this stuff? But my point is I think the other influencers and all these other guys that have been doing it for a long time, they've hit their ceiling. And so now they're like, what's next? Right. And so they got a basically, like a good brand or good identity and good views, good download rate, and they got a good product line behind them. And they don't know what's next. And they get approached or it comes up, hey, we like your brand. We want to buy your brand. And there you go. And that's what we're seeing happen now is that these, the conglomerates, or I should say the private equities coming in and supporting some of these guys, right? Because I think a big problem we're starting to see now too is just product redundancy. It's just gotten out of control.
Yeah.
And I'm we won't even talk about ceramic coating stuff because I don't want to degrade any of the ceramic coating brands. I'm not trying to do that. And I'm not trying to degrade anybody, but we've made this whole industry so product centric, right? It's like the product is at the top. Let's like praise the product and let's not even talk about the technician, right? And so we've got all these redundant products out here now. And I think it's just diluted down everything that we're doing, right? It's made it really, really difficult. And I don't know where I'm going with all this. I just got a little sidetracked.
Well, no, but to jump in with what you're saying is, with private equity coming in and saying, hey, we'll buy, we see what you're doing as an influencer, or hey, your brand, right? Because there's been some of that going on. We see the brands. What I kind of equate it to, and for anybody who listened, I did a little 2-part kind of on a little bit of this of big business buying little business on the podcast. Was what I equate it to is when I had my skate shop and when Nike entered the skateboarding chat, with their Nike SBs. And true hardcore traditional skaters hated it, right? Because a lot of the skate brands were always for us by us. I mean, you think about some of the greats.
Sure.
They left a brand to start their own brand, and brought on amateurs, turned them pro. They'd make a lot of money and then they'd leave to start their own brand. So majority of a lot of the brands in the skateboarding industry was started by somebody in the skateboarding industry.
Yep.
And then spawned another brand, spawned another brand, spawned another brand. And that does kind of happen in the detail industry a little bit. Somebody decides like, hey, I want to make my own chemical or whatever. But going back to Nike, when Nike entered the skateboard chat, and it's because the way that I look at it is at that time, skateboarding was a $5 billion plus year industry.
That's wild.
So now you're a shoe brand, right? And you make basketball shoes and running shoes and walking shoes and hiking shoes and all this other stuff, and you go, hey, hang on a second, that's a $5 billion a year industry, and they torch shoes.
Sure.
I mean, you think about skateboarders. They torch shoes. They probably destroy shoes
Sure.
faster and quicker than anybody else ever. Why aren't we in that industry?
Yeah.
You know? So I think of it the same way. Like
You're
there's
right.
a lot of people on the outside that are doing whatever. In the last, and I don't know if maybe it's just because the last 10 or 12 years that I've kind of been in this professional detailing side of it, not the 20 something years in the car wash before it, but seeing it kind of under more of a microscope now that I'm in it,
Sure.
it feels like detailing has had a big boom,
Yeah.
right? Especially within the last 4 or 5 years. I mean, you think about how big it's gotten. So if I'm a business industry or whatever, right? And we have a bunch of different umbrella thingamajiggers, and I start seeing, you know, dirty old cars on TV. I start seeing all these YouTube videos where barn finds and product reviews and how to detail and all this other stuff. And I go, that seems like that's a moneymaker. Why aren't we in it? You know, I'm
Yeah.
going to jump in it. So, that's where, I don't know if that's where you were kind of leading to, but you talking about these private equity or businesses seeing quote unquote influencers, um, and going, hey, we want you to basically do your job, right? Well,
Yeah.
here's some money. Go influence some people to buy the stuff, I always hated that term, but realistically, at the end of the day, I was taking money from ad sponsors to get sales. So
Sure.
I, in turn, influence people. Now, hopefully, I align myself with some pretty good brands, but
Well, I mean, it's not like, here it's great that you're being honest and open and transparent about it. And it's not like you're doing something that's never been done. I'm
right.
just, I just think that you had mentioned just a few moments back, confidence, right?
Yeah.
We got to have confidence in the technician. It's very obvious that a lot of people lack confidence, right? So what do we do then? We hide behind the brand, right?
Yes.
We load our shops with the banners. I got the banner on the wall. I got this over here. I got that over there. So you got all these things that make you look official. You're official. Got the lights, got the line, right? The shop looks
Yeah.
great. So instead of promoting yourself, you end up promoting all these other brands,
Yeah.
right? And what do those brands do for you? All right, great. They provide you a product.
Yeah.
And that's good. You need products, but why can't the technician promote themselves, right?
They should.
That's something I've tried to always do, right? I mean, I have friends that own brands, and I like to support my friends, but I'm always talking about what I'm working on, what I'm doing, where I'm at, the subject, right? The subject and promoting my brand. I'm not really talking about products. Every now and then I'll sprinkle a product in, especially I want to give my friend Dave a shout out at Old Burke. Dave has worked really hard to build up a lot of these products. And so I think what we're seeing now to tie all this stuff in is that, like, you get into the industry, these guys are suckered in, they realize the ceiling's a little low. Now they're all in, they're committed, they've got tools, they got time. They're like, oh, we need more revenues. Oh, well, we're going to start a product company now, right? And then all of a sudden, like, I've been doing years of research with this product. We had our own chemist do this. It's like, really? You didn't talk about it on your media at all, but all of a sudden now you had your own chemist. It was, I just think that now, like, true unique chemistry and product development takes a long time, right? I've watched that unfold. I've been doing this for almost 30 years, and I've seen what it takes to bring a new product, like a truly new product, to the market, right? So I think I was just watching a video the other day, a documentary about oh God, you're going to put me on the spot. I just thought of this and I can't remember his name, but it was about a composer that wrote all the music for a lot of movies.
Okay.
Great Netflix special. It'll come to me later. But there was in the documentary, there was a debate about artificial intelligence influencing writing scores for movies. Okay. And and one of the topics on this was that like the composer was saying how he really appreciates these AI tools to help meet his deadlines to get the score written in time, because years ago you'd make a movie, took a long time. Now they're putting them together, still takes a long time, but now they're putting them together faster. So artificial intelligence comes in and helps write the score, because if AI wasn't there assisting these people, they would miss the opportunity and it would no longer be relevant, right? And I feel like that's in a way what's kind of happened with the reconditioning world. It's like, all right, let's just hypothetically say you and I had this great idea for some unique chemistry. And we want to build a product, right? And we want to hire a chemist or hire these people to help with this stuff. You're looking at years, man. By the time you really develop a product that is truly unique, come up with a whole marketing campaign, get the label stuff right, get it packaged, get it ready to ship. And so at that time, if you do it the right way and come up with something that's truly unique, it's a missed opportunity to me. Yeah. Right? Because somebody else may have done it, or somebody else may have beat you to the finish line. So now you see all these guys just kind of white labeling stuff, and which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing. But again, we got this new product, and it's just like I don't know when it's ever going to end. I mean, I don't know how I've seen a bunch of new product companies pop up this year, and there's so many I never even freaking heard of before. I was just like, oh my God, like,
yeah,
product redundancy has just gotten out of control.
It's a little bit easier now too, because again, let's take it back. And you might know this better than myself, but what was it? Opti? Was it Opti was the first ceramic coating? Opti Ceramic Pro was kind
OptiCoat?
Yeah, OptiCoat was was that the first, or was it G-Tech that was the first? I know like Opti and G-Tech, and I think not Ceramic Pro, I'm sorry, CarPro, C-Quartz, were kind of like that cluster of firsts, right?
I believe so. I got to be 100% honest. I'm a little foggy with the ceramic coating history, because gotcha. I was more of a reconditioning specialist and a sales guy before. I was selling this stuff and doing it before we ever had coatings. But I do believe that the Koreans were one of the first 2 or 3 companies in the globe to start producing coatings.
Let's take it from my recollection of what I've been told. It's those 3 companies were kind of around the same time. Mm-hmm. And so I would imagine that those 3 companies probably, yes, had years of development. And realistically, maybe not. Maybe there was, I had originally heard from who was it? One of the guys at Simon I's, Tom.
Okay.
Placia. And he had originally, I believe it was Tom, had originally told me that where ceramic coating came from was in Asia, from kind of like the industrial coating, for like roller coasters and things like that, because of the salt air. And somebody was like, got an idea, let's put this on cars. Can we retool it so it's not so hard and whatever? And so again, like, it could have been somebody else's idea, and then those 3. But I feel like everything else, right? Like, once somebody's already done it, now it makes it easier for the next person, easier for the next person. Totally. So with trying to, like, oh yeah, we came up with our new coating or whatever, right? Yeah, it might not be a new coating, because coatings have already been around for years.
Yeah.
But I don't knock anybody in a sense that does come out with a new coating, where to me, I kind of get a little like, is okay, like, what is your past experience with coatings that all of a sudden you've got a coating,
That's a good point.
Things like that. I mean, I look at, and I'll throw Aquatech, and when Mike and Jason kind of first came to me, and we were friends first, and when they told me they had been working on it for 2 years leading up to or whatever, but I had a little more faith in what they were doing because
Sure.
Mike had been with Ceramic Pro in kind of the beginning days.
Oh, I don't think I knew that.
Yeah, him and Peter and Matt were the ones that came up with hydrosilics. So Mike was a part of that.
Cool. That's cool.
Jason was one of Todd Cooper Ryder's main detailers,
Okay.
at Esoteric. He had been around a lot of the ceramic coatings in the beginning and worked with them. They together had formed a partnership and ran 22 PLE in the States for a year or so. So to me, like, those guys have experience to
Sure.
go, okay, if we're going to go to a chemist, we know what to look for.
Yeah.
Versus a guy like me who's an influencer, got a podcast, a YouTube channel, whatever, and I go, hey guys, I've got a ceramic coating all of a sudden.
Yeah.
That's where I kind of look at. And again, I've said it before, same shit, different bottle. You slap a different label on it for the most part. Any ceramic coating I would say a good 90% of them are going to do the job.
Sure. Well, and you bring up an interesting point. It just made me think about this as like, it's something that I wanted to say, right? You're still putting your trust in humans in some capacity. And on the corporate level, when you got private equity in here, where you got the men in suits that aren't technicians and they're not service providers, and they got a big garage or big warehouse filled with inventory, they don't care about performance. They don't care about any of this stuff, right? And I'm going to give you an example of this. I'm not going to name names, but back in 2017, pre-pandemic, when we had the big silicone crisis. I mean, we've had a lot of silicone crises, but tire dressing was one of these things where we saw significant price increases. I mean, I remember when I first started selling product in the early 2000s, we would sell a 55-gallon drum of hexane-based tire dressing, end user price $375, $350, right? That's wild. So fast forward, silicone prices go up. You got all this competition. You got lots of different dressings now. Well, one of the vendors, or I should say, with the company I used to work with, they used to buy from a lot of people, and they would leverage one person's price against the next to get the best price, right? So they would play games. Oh, I'm getting this price. I'm getting this price. Okay, everybody does it. Well, I remember we had a really great tire dress that blew everybody's doors off. You couldn't touch this stuff, right? Everybody loved it. Price was right. And then just one day, just like that, it didn't work so well anymore. It didn't work so good, right? And I happened to know the people that made the dressing. And I called the guys and I was like, hey, what's up with this? Oh, no, yeah, nothing's changed. It's the same thing. Well, come to find out, many years later after I left and the other person no longer works there, I got to ask them about it. And it was like there was a price war. And so they took one or more of the big silicones out of there that did the job to meet the price point, right? And nobody said anything. So who loses in that situation, right? I feel like I lost because I was lied to, but then my customer lost because they're getting the wrong information. And then their customer lost because these people are complaining about tire dressing. So it's just all because the guy at the top didn't want to pay price X versus price X. And so I think that can happen a lot, right? And this is where we can be naive as people, right? And as I mentioned before, you got to promote yourself and not the brand. I mean, it's okay to have a brand align with you, but what happens if they change something and you don't even know? Right? What happens then?
Or hey, what happens if they sell and that brand is not that brand anymore? What happens if they go out of business and now whatever?
It's a really, really weird thing, and I've watched it happen, and that's just one scenario of many. And I'm so happy I don't have to sell tire dressing anymore because I still get the phone calls. I mean, here we are. All this time later, I left the sales world in 2018, and I'm still today in 2025 getting phone calls from past customers. Hey, what are you using for tire dressing? We got
Yeah.
a problem here. This ain't working, right? And so people want answers,
Right.
but they've been lied to the whole way,
Yeah.
And
Well,
so,
that's kind of, I had a conversation with Brian Guy when I first met him, and I was still, I feel like, in my infancy of leaving the car washing, doing this. I mean, I had been doing it for a couple of years at that point. But Brian, I think, was one of the first people that explained to me, like, what you're saying, right? Like taking a key component out or changing a key component. And the way that he kind of, because he was with Swiss Vax at the time, and I was kind of asking him, like, why is this stuff so expensive? I mean,
yeah,
wax is, you buy that stuff at Walmart for, cheap. And he was the one that explained to me that, yes, that while it's same shit, different bottle, raw materials are raw materials, but depending on where they're sourced from, right? So like in a carnauba, like this carnauba wax and this carnauba wax, it's carnauba wax, whatever.
hmm
But, this one might have been sourced from carnauba in Brazil that,
yep,
is blah, 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 whatever. And so the price point for it's higher.
yes,
This one might have been sourced from, wherever,
yep,
and the carnauba plant isn't as good, doesn't produce as much,
yep,
true carnauba, da 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 da. So the price point's lower.
yep,
And so therefore, yes, they are both by term carnauba because they both include carnauba. But if one has, not 90% carnauba and one has 20% carnauba, right?
sure, yeah,
Um, and that's where I think, a lot of times, we just don't know,
you just don't know.
and
You just
right,
don't know.
unless you're just a crazy insane person like Noxie that can, like, look at stuff and breathe on it and do all this little testing and knows.
Yeah,
The average detailer isn't going to be able to know if
no,
brand A, B, or C changed one key little component in the raw good supply chain
yes,
to save some money, so that at the end they're profiting more, right? Like, because
yeah,
hey guys, we saved $50 in our raw good materials per bottle, but we're not dropping the price $50. Like,
yeah,
most of the time they're going to raise it $50. Um, so I think that's another thing, and being brand awareness is great, and supporting the brands is great. I mean, obviously being part of a brand now, I mean, I love when, I see people's orders and they bought a banner or they bought a shirt, because, like, it shows, like, okay, cool, like they really enjoy the
sure,
product, they want to show it off.
yeah,
um but the other thing is, and I'm going to kind of go back to um the confidence, right? So having the confidence of knowing what to sell. I think the other thing is knowledge. You have to compare.
totally,
You have to complement those two, because again, Alex from Aquatech could be like, "Hey, Aquatech coating does A, B, C, D, and E."
hmm
Now, Matt, you go to your client, you go, "Aquatech coating does A, B, C, and D."
yeah,
But client goes, "Hey, what about A sub 1?" And now Matt's stuck because Matt doesn't
hmm
know.
yeah,
So having the knowledge of what your services include, do, provide, all that things, like you said, right? You love when the client's asking you those questions because you've
sure,
got the answers, right?
yeah, I thrive on it.
Right.
Let's go.
But
Come on,
a
bring it
lot of
on.
but a lot of detailers, are I'll use the terms, they're just parrots, right?
Yeah, lazy. I'm
Coding does this. It lasts 5 years. Like, and they don't know any. They're just relying specifically on what their salesman or what the brand told them. And then
yeah,
realistically, how well does the brand know what is really involved? Because they're just going by what the chemist or the manufacturer is telling them. And so if they don't ask question A sub 1, they can't pass it on to the brand that's buying the chemical from them to pass it on to the salesman to pass it on to the detailer. So that's the other thing is doing your research and knowledge and asking those questions. I mean, listen, I love when detailers ask me, hey, does it do this? And I'm like, well, shit, that's a good one. I'll tell you what, I don't know, but let me find out for you and I'll get back. Because I want them to be able to know that, and to be able to understand it. But let's be honest, a majority of the detailers out there just take word,
Well, you just used the right word, and that's what I was thinking in my head right now was the old oh gosh, why can't I think of his name? And this is George Carlin, the
Uh-huh.
the comic,
Yep.
right? I mean,
Yep.
George, the comedian. He had that quote, right? If honesty was suddenly introduced to the American society, the whole system would collapse.
Yeah.
And I think that's totally, you just said honesty, right? And if honesty was suddenly introduced to the detailing industry, there'd be a lot of pissed off people right now, right?
Yeah.
There'd be a lot of people that were let down and feel that they were lied to. And so this is the moment of the podcast where I'm gonna go back and I want to chop it into a reel and put the text underneath there so you can read this, because this is why my message has been the same since day one. Is like, the technicians need to band together and rally to support the things that we have built, right? Not all this bullshit. I mean, really and truly, and you said it best. It goes back to having the confidence and the knowledge, right? Those two things aligned together are lethal in a good way, right? I can tell you right now, like, this year I've done more ceramic coating jobs that, my ticket prices were this year overall, my numbers are down compared to last year.
Yeah.
Not by much, but a little.
I feel like
However,
everybody's are.
they are.
Yeah.
But I'm finalizing my books. I've been going through it here, with the Christmas holiday. The cool thing is that my profitability is at its all-time high, right? So there's a difference between making money and being profitable. And that's what
Right.
a lot of these other guys don't really understand. And this is why I'm such a big advocate for training, right? And it's so weird because it's just like the detail guys that are younger, that don't have a lot of experience, they buy into all the bullshit and the hype. But then when it comes to actually like stepping up to the mirror and looking at themselves and really seeing if they got the goods to back it up, they're like, no, training's too expensive.
Yeah.
I can't do it. And it's really because they're probably vulnerable. Like, they don't want to be seen in that fashion, that they don't really know what they're doing. Right.
Yeah.
And that's a problem, because now you've continuously just like, you're being lied to by the manufacturers, not everyone, but, and then you're essentially not maybe intentionally lying to your customers, right? But
Right.
you
You think it's truth because the manufacturer is telling you. It's just like I said, right? Like if
yeah,
they don't,
exactly.
if the chemist doesn't tell the manufacturer, tells the brand, tells the, yeah, you think you're saying what's true when it might not be. So yeah.
Well, sure. I mean, and that's like when you get into the industry and you want to start selling higher tickets and you want to start selling ceramic coatings, right? You hide behind the warranty.
Yeah.
Warranty's good, warranty's not good, whatever the case may be, but that's your pitch. Well, you got the warranty, got the warranty, got the warranty. I'm the other way. I challenge it. Like, people call me and they ask about warranty, and you know what I tell them? Say, if you're buying the ceramic coating for the warranty, you probably shouldn't get it.
Yeah.
Don't get it, right? Because I could give you 5 other good reasons why you should buy the coating, and the warranty not be in those 5 reasons. But I have curated my own clientele because I'm honest with people, right?
Mhm.
And they're like, hey, that guy, he fixed the problem. He solved the problem for me. So now you solve the problem and you make it a reality for them. They're kind of like, they're in shock. They're like, this is great. And then they go tell their friend, they go tell their neighbor. And I think, excuse me, that's a big thing that the industry is missing. A lot of these guys, to kind of tie it into it, I say a lot of the guys don't have the goods to back it up. They just don't. And I'm not picking on anybody. I'm not trying to bash anybody. I'm not trying to single anybody out. I'm just saying their lack of confidence and their knowledge is hurting it for the rest of us. And that's a perfect example of these guys that are still doing $150 details, man.
And it is hard, like you said. I mean, I don't necessarily know that sometimes it's, you don't want to feel like you don't know, so you kind of use that excuse as a training. you know, trainings themselves, a proper training, I feel like, can be quite expensive, and then expensive beyond that, right? Because that's the one thing that I always used to kind of look at when um the first coding company that I was with, and they said, hey, if you want this top tier, deal, you got to come to a training and it's $750. It's, in the beginning, like, "Oh, man, $750, that's a lot of money, Um, but to me, it wasn't just $750. It was airfare, hotel for a weekend. It was food. It was,
Yeah, all the other
shop,
incidentals that go
shop,
along.
shop being closed down and things like that. But I'll tell you what, when I made that switch and came to Gloss University, I mean, we'll back it up even because I did Noxie first. I
Hmm.
went to Noxie's first and then did Gloss University. Um, and Noxie wasn't cheap either,
Sure.
Um, but I feel like what I left with was worth more than the
Yep.
price of admission
Yep.
and what it took to get there. And that's why, with Aquatech, one of the things that we've done is we did one last year with still this year. This year with Noxie. We're going to do one next year with Noxie, and we're doing one with you guys at Gloss University.
Yep.
Is we are offering trainings to our installers or future installers if they
Sure.
want to come to the training and then get certified. Is we're offering them a training at an event like a Gloss University, right? So they're going to learn from you and Dave.
Yeah.
They're going to learn how to punch up their paint correction, how to punch up their sales technique, how to punch up their business a little bit. And then, hey, if they're not, Aquatech installers, here's our product. The ones that we've done with, or the one we did with Noxie and the one we have planned in early February, or I'm sorry, uh, late February, early March. Right now is all of our installers. So
Sure.
to me, that's a 2-day training with Aaron Knox that you guys get whatever you want, because there's no need to train them on Aquatech coding. It's already installing our stuff, right?
Yeah.
So the way that I look at it is that's what I want to do for our installers. I don't want to make them come to a training to learn how to put on a coating, that more than often than not they've already been using
Correct.
or they know. I mean, Mike's got a great line. The reason when people ask, like, do I have to come get certified? Mike's got a great line. He says, and I love it. He says, they don't make you retake your driver's test when you buy a new car.
Yeah.
Have you done
It's
a
good.
ceramic coating before? Have you used a pro coating before? Cool. Then you can use our stuff. Um, and so we don't want to do that. We don't want to make you or force you come to use our stuff. But what we would like to do is partner with Gloss University or Aaron Knox, or maybe in the future there's somebody else. And for us, that's our way of like kind of giving back to our installers. Is
Sure.
come do this training. You're going to get a discounted price, more than likely. But you're going to go home with tons more information than you would have. And that's where people, I feel like, and I've tried to advocate, obviously Gloss University a lot through the podcast, is that's where you need to kind of make that decision. Okay, if I'm going to go to a training, where am I going to go? Who am I going to go? Do your due diligence,
Yep.
and see what all is being involved and what you're going to come home with. Because I'll tell you, I mean, I've been to 4 trainings now, I think, with Noxie, including the one that you would at Gloss University, and my brain hurts
Yeah.
after taking in that much information.
Yeah. That's why I don't do 1-day trainings, because it's
Yeah,
like it's a
it's too
waste of everyone's
hard.
time.
It's too hard. I mean, honestly, like I don't even feel like I can go to work on the Mondays when I get back home. Like I need a day to just like, okay, like, David said this, Matt said that, Noxie was saying this,
Yeah, you got to take notes.
yeah,
Got to take
it's
notes.
like, and it's tough because it's just so much. So it's definitely worth it. You got to get off it. I mean, you got to get off your ass and do it. One of the things that I would recommend to people is when I talked with Kyle Camus, um, every year he sets, and Jerry does it too, Jerry Grant. Those guys set aside a training budget for the year.
Mm-hmm.
Like they know, like, okay, I'm gonna save this money this year so that I can go to whatever trainings next year that I want to go to. Do that out of every job.
Yeah.
Even if I know, I think this episode's going to go out on at the beginning of the new year. So
Yep.
even if you have to take 2025 and say, okay, look, I'm gonna $5 out of every job, I'm gonna put in a training jar.
Yeah.
So at the end of 25, I've got my, you know, four, five, $6,000 or whatever. I'm gonna plan in 26 to go to a Gloss University training that it's gonna cost me maybe $1,500, but now I've got airfare money, I've got hotel money,
Yep.
I've got food money, I've got, whatever. Um, do that. I would recommend doing that for everybody because getting knowledge from professionals like yourself, Matt, I feel like is better than going to a brand training. And
Well,
and not again, not that there's anything wrong with some brand
no.
trainings, but again, you're gonna kind of just learn more about the brand, and the brand's kind of, I feel like, doing it as a cash grab. Here's our information, here's a certificate, go forth and be happy.
Well, I'm going to be having a guest on the podcast here real soon that just recently did a one-on-one training with me, and he super educated individual, and I'm really looking forward because this guy came from kind of a corporate background
Uh-huh.
and worked in computers for a long time. Is very, 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 very intelligent, and I don't want to say challenge me, like, because I'm prepared to work with the top and the bottom.
Yeah.
I'm prepared. And he asked the most intelligent questions and pre-qualified me, and it was
Nice.
super, super awesome. And so I appreciate. We had we talked on the phone, we had email banter back and forth. It was very organized, and it's not something that you normally see from the detail community.
Right.
And
But
I tell you,
I bet you felt even better that he chose you to do that, because I think it goes back to what you were saying with the customers challenging you for your business. So for
yeah,
everybody who's listening to this, like, ask the questions of the person that you're thinking about going to a training,
yeah,
like your clients ask you about your services.
absolutely. And I'll tell you this too, especially like to put things in perspective, right? Because like I get it. You want to be in business, you're going to have to find a way to cough up some money, and you're going to have to to find some equity and get some funding, right? But when you compare it, and I guess I would challenge the technicians, the younger technicians that might be listening to this, I would challenge them to get out of their own head, because them being so conservative with spending money is the same mentality that their clients might be having with them,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I just want to, I have a close friend of mine I've known for a long, long time. He's in the process of starting a restaurant business. Took out a freaking gargantuan loan from the bank to pay back all this stuff, right? And so like we were talking about this not long ago, and we were talking about how he is trying to, he's trying to source furniture. He's trying to source the equipment. He's trying to get this front of house. We got to order napkins. We got to do all these things. So he's got all this money tied up into like millions of dollars tied up.
Yeah.
And he's not even providing a service yet.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so like when I compare that, right? Like now they have it's different business,
Yeah.
longer game, and different ticket prices and that type of stuff, but they have all this upfront cost. And so like when you think about it, like hypothetically, if it costs you $3,500 to go to a training, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
But if you can learn how to sell bigger ticket prices, that money you'll make back in less than a month.
Exactly.
And so comparing, when you really compare that, I just think you got to get out of your own head.
Yes.
These guys are so afraid of what they might have to lose that they have no idea what they have to gain that's on the other side of that.
And I'll tell you what, it's kind of going back to the confidence thing is, the one thing, and there's many things that have stuck in my head that I've learned from Knox over the years. But the one thing was that first training I went to him, and at the time he was like, how much are you charging for, your correction and coding job? And at the time I was at $1,400, and I was like, man, it's a lot of money. Like and Noxie goes, go home tomorrow. And now it's $1,600.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, what? He's like $200. Just raise it $200.
Yep.
And so I go home, and the first call I get, or the first, I'm talking to the client, and they're like, okay, so how much? And I was like, $1,600. Like I was almost like questioning,
Yeah.
like, is that good?
Yeah.
And they're like, cool. When can I do it? That $200. And that
little jump.
Right. Noxie just going $200. It's not a lot. It's $200.
Nope.
Probably increased my business 30% that year.
Yeah.
So the money that I spent to fly to Atlanta and stay in a hotel and eat $20 cheeseburgers at the hotel, and because Noxie didn't feed me, and then pay Noxie, right? I mean, I was probably easily $2,000, $2,500 into it.
Sure.
I mean, $200 extra a job.
Yeah.
I mean, what 10 jobs, 15 jobs, and I made my money back, right? So,
well, I got to thinking about this last night too. It's still like, and we touched on this when we started the podcast, but when you think about your car breaks, right? And you go to get a repair, or you get involved in a collision and you go get a repair. I don't know how many of these people ever really looked at the line items on an invoice, right? But when you look at like, they did this, there's a charge for this, there's a charge for that, there's a charge for this, there's a charge for this. And I swear the detailing world is the only place where you can get everything, right?
Yes.
For one price. Hey, we're going to do it all. We're going to do everything, right? Yeah, we're going to clean the glass, do the engine, we're going to do interior, we're going to do the seats, we're going to polish this for one price. Like, are you kidding me? How every other part of the industry does it. Every other industry's got line items. So, I've found a lot of success for myself in breaking up more parts and just doing a lot of a la carte stuff. So you got your baseline price. You want this, another charge. You want that, another charge. You want this, another charge. You don't want it? That's fine. But if you do, there's money on the table. So you got to learn how to sell these things, man.
Yeah.
You got to learn how to have these conversations. You got to have confidence. You got to be able to see these opportunities. And if you can't get out of your own way, and you can't, see and recognize that, a lot of that stuff's your own problems. And that's where I would encourage people to take risks, man. Your clients essentially are taking a risk in some fashion on you. They're putting their trust, right?
Oh yeah.
Maybe risk isn't the best word, but there still is a little bit of risk associated with it.
But there is, because they're spending potentially heaps of money for you to do a job that, unless you are a referral or again, if they've used you before, so if they don't know you from Adam, it's a huge risk to go and spend. I mean, how many horror stories have we, heard in the industry of, guy went down the road because it was cheaper, and now they're back at my shop, and, now the damage is done, and it's going to cost, tenfold for us to fix it, or whatever, the case may be.
Well, and also on that, don't sell yourself short. I'm not going to single people out, but one of our biggest competitors that's right down the street from us has had a really difficult year, and they're slashing prices. And I've seen their ceramic coating prices now that are like super, super cheap. I got a local competitor that's very well known on media platforms that's gone through some changes this year. And I just seen their first like fire sale discounted ad where they're offering a ceramic coating for under $600. And I find it humorous. It's like, you used to be at the top, and now you're that desperate for revenues that you sell yourself short. Like, at that point, sell a different service, man. Don't degrade your top service. You're hurting yourself and you're hurting the industry. Like, and here, I give discounts at the end of the year. I do. But you know what I discount on? I don't discount on my labor. I discount my material costs, because when I'm charging a price, I have time. It's based off of time and materials.
Right.
A lot of other businesses still to this day are very successful by charging two things, time and materials. So if you don't know how long it's going to take you to do a job, that's a problem, right? I'm not saying you got to be right within the same exact number all the time, but I've done enough reconditioning services, enough paint correction that I know, hey, if I get involved in this, I'm going to have maybe 90 minutes of prep time here. I'm going to have maybe 7-8 hours of correction here, installation, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, we're talking maybe 12-15 hours, right? Then material costs. So I just had a barrage of ceramic coatings that I did from basically after SEMA from November, December. And they were a prorated, right, discounted service because I didn't charge them materials for the end of the year. So I still got my labor rate and I still made good money and everybody's happy, but I didn't discount the service by half.
Well, I think that's important, right? Is don't short your labor rate. Don't cut out you, because listen, you know, the pad company didn't give you a deal on the pads.
No.
You know, the compound and polish company didn't give you a deal on that. The ceramic coating company didn't give you a deal on that. The towel company didn't give you a deal on that. You know, oh, but Alex, but I order in bulk. Okay, so you're ordering in bulk, you get a discount, whatever, right? But at the end, but still, you know, there's those companies are still making their money. So don't discount on your labor. If your labor rate is X an hour, keep it at X an hour, or make the job fit. You know, or you know, if you're only going to charge $500 and your labor rate's $100 an hour, do a 5-hour job. You know, I mean, figure it out. I mean,
exactly.
You know, I mean, you know, I kind of go back to again, you know, the things we learn from the greats in this industry, and Brian Guy. You know, Brian told me he had 3 prices. He had sunlight correction, he had wall light correction, or he had handheld correction prices. Which one do you want? Are you good with how it's going to look in the sun? Then I'm going to buzz over it real fast. I'm going to charge you a few $100 and call it a day.
Most people are good with shiny.
Right.
And
you want me to pull it in the shop? The shop lights are designed to kind of show some imperfections. Well, now that's going to take a little bit extra time. I got to do this. You know, I mean, you're right. Like, don't discount your time. And you know, that's the one thing we there's no more of is time.
Hey, and I'm super proud of myself this year looking at my numbers. You know, I was like, you know, I get it, it's election year. I didn't do the same volume that I did last year, but I've never been this profitable in my business in a year's time, because I've fine-tuned it and I've got the system down. You know, and it's taken me a while to do it, but you know, I'm doing it. And I think, to touch on that, it's like, this is what we teach you guys in training is in building up your confidence and expanding your knowledge, you'll be able to give the customer what they need, not what you need them to have, right? Exactly. And so this is where the skill comes in, because you got to be able to you need to be able to read the car while reading the client. And if you're doing that in real time, I'll tell you, that's not easy to do. You know, I mean, it's not easy to do, but you are the service provider, right? And these younger technicians that let the client manipulate them. You know, if you go to the car dealership, or if you go to the independent repair shop to get your car fixed and your brakes are bad, you can't just be like, well, can you just replace the one brake pad and just leave the crusty old calipers? Like, no, I'm not going to do that, because there's a liability there. And when you crash and die, I'm not going to be, now I get it. You're not going to maybe die if you don't get out a scratch or something like that. But my point is that like, hey man, give the customer what they need, not what you need them to have, right? Exactly. Because if you do that, and you do it with confidence, and you do it with honesty, and you do it with some pride, they're going to leave your shop feeling pretty like, hey man, that dude's legit. Like, hey, I got customer service. They
Yep.
took care of me, right? And that establishes trust, which is the most important part of all of it. And so,
Yeah.
like, if you can't trust yourself, if you can't trust yourself and your own skills, good luck with having a customer trust you with their expensive car.
Absolutely.
Just like mic drop right there, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's the truth. And we see that so many times, like, guys are afraid, like and that's what this industry's kind of become. And it doesn't need to be that way. It doesn't need to be that way. Like, there's so much talent. There's so much talent. There's so many good guys out there that are really passionate about what they do, and they really bring home and drive excellence. And that's great, dude. And I feel like I want to try to rally more of these guys together to help support the other guys, because otherwise these men in suits at the top, they're going to take over the industry, and they already are.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
everybody's being lied to, and all these guys have got their own agenda to sell these things. And it's like, I'm not going to name names, but you can figure it out now. You got guys you got influencers on the internet saying detailing is easy. Detailing should be fun. You should be able to go in your garage. You shouldn't be stressed out cleaning your car. Well, okay, there's a difference if you're just doing it, a DIY, and you're doing it in your garage. But when you're a business owner and you've got cars to do and you've got deadlines to meet, there's some parts of that aren't fun, man.
Yeah.
So you're
Some
spewing a
parts of it
bunch.
that are stressful.
There's parts that are stressful. So you got these guys that are living in false reality land, pretending that these guys are, I'm an expert. I'm in the industry for 40 years. Okay, well, how come you don't run a service business then? Right? How come you're just trying to just hustle juice on the internet? Right? Like, and I'm not knocking people for doing that, but the narrative in what they're doing is not the narrative that aligns with the actual service providers.
Right.
And it's
Well, again, it goes back to being an influencer, and you're being paid to sell a product.
yes,
And sometimes it doesn't matter, how you sell it, as long as
yeah,
you sell that product. So if
yeah,
you have to say, hey, you know, doing this is fun, doing this is easy, doing this is no stress,
okay, yeah, yeah,
then
and
you sold your product, Um, but yeah,
it's frightening, because that's the thing, is that, like, everybody's watching from the other end of their phone or from the computer, and it's like, wow, that looks amazing, right? Because we only see the end result,
yeah,
right? Because if I'm making a YouTube video for views and I'm crawling around on the ground polishing the rockers, Alex Russell, right, people are going to skip that. They're going to be like, I don't want to see this guy crawling around on the ground.
right.
I'm done. The watch time's down. So it's false
Yeah,
reality, man.
it is.
It's false reality. Sad.
It is. Yeah. And again, I've got a good friend of mine that now is telling me that his whole YouTube algorithm is filled with, detailing videos, whether it's um, you know, podcasts or how-tos or whatever. And, it's just that the whole industry is kind of grown for views,
Yeah, it has.
you know?
Yeah.
Um,
Sad.
everybody's got a YouTube channel now. And listen, I think that there's some out there that are pretty good.
Yeah, for
There's
sure.
some that I think are educational and watch, but I also, and I kind of know this, for a fact, there are some people out there that are only detailing to make videos because they make a shit ton of money doing videos versus running a shop.
Yeah. Yep.
And that's where, again, I think you got to put your bullshit lenses on, or filtered lenses on,
Yeah.
And kind of know, like, okay, is this an entertainment video for me? Is this an educational video for me?
Yep.
What are these people doing?
Yep. Yeah, just be
how
a little, try to inform yourself with reality, and that's the part I love about being a service provider, is still to this day, is my customer interactions,
yeah,
because dealing, it's always been about the people, and then on the high end of things, like working with the Ring Brothers and working with the Roadster Shop and some of the other guys that trust us to work on their expensive cars. I mean, that's a feeling that you kind of can't replace, right? And so, like, to me, at the end of the day, when we work on a Ring Brothers car or a vehicle for the Roadster shop, and I stand back and I look at my work, I'm like, I'm feeling proud about my work, but I'm more happy about the established relationship there, because it was built off of trust and nothing more, right? Like, yeah, there's other guys that could come in there and could do a really great job. They could do a really excellent job, and they could probably be trusted too, but they trust me, right?
Yeah.
They're trusting me. And I mean, that's something that I don't ever want to take for granted. And so, like, that's where I kind of try to walk a straight line. And I guess this is kind of where we can move into ending the podcast. But like, this is the question that I keep asking, right? Because when I started doing all this stuff, I never wanted to be an influencer, and I'm not really an influencer, but I have become influential.
Yes.
So what's the difference there, right? Like, there are people like, you're an influencer or you're influential. And so I guess if I've inspired some people and I've influenced some people in some of my mentality, I mean, I should be proud of that too, but I'm not doing that for money, right?
Right.
I mean, we train people, but we train people uh, because I want them to be better. I'm trying to raise the bar, man, raise the floor,
Right.
and we got a long way to go. We got a long, long, long way to go, because it's a mess right now. And I think a lot of the guys have been very, the industry has lacked to be progressive on the service side of things. So instead of being proactive, they're being reactive, right? So
Yes.
business gets slow, and now panic goes. Oh, we're panicking now. We're being reactive, which that's just a byproduct of that what happens, right? But you need to regroup, and you need to figure out a plan. And sometimes those plans creates, a different strategy, man. And trying some thinking outside the box, something that you haven't done before. And of course it's scary and difficult, but you got to do something,
Yeah.
right? So I don't know. I don't really know what lies next for this 2025 year. I mean, I am excited for you guys got mobile tech going on. I'm still kind of on the fence if I'm going to mobile tech, but we got a lot of trainings this year, and I believe it's going to be really difficult just to fill and classes and get people engaged, because even the trainings now are getting diluted down. Everyone's an expert trainer.
Exactly.
You got
Yeah.
a training facility here. He's training over there. They're doing this, which, if you've listened to my messages before, I've always kind of said, go and work kind of with anybody that you can, because doing something's better than doing nothing.
Yeah.
But you should also screen those guys too, and kind of see what the agenda is and what is going on. And that's why I'm excited for this year, because we got a lot of different educational stuff that's not just that doesn't just revolve around advanced wet sanding and paint correction.
Yeah,
So
you guys got some cool stuff coming up. I watched the video, and
yeah,
you guys are definitely tackling some different jobs and some different styles of training.
diversification.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Which
I
I think is awesome, because then it's not like, you know, it's not just, oh, Gloss University is just advanced wet sanding and paint correction. So,
yeah,
I don't know if I want to go to that, because I don't know that I need advanced wet sanding and paint correction.
sure.
So it's cool that you guys are opening it up and doing a couple of different things. I mean, one of them obviously with Aquatech is doing a ceramic coating, kind of sales and application, and you know training that kind of revolves more around the ceramic coating side than the advanced wet sand and paint correction side, because usually, like, that's what it is, right? It's usually a good 75-80% of wet sanding and paint correction, and then you get
Yep.
20-25% of coatings or whatever. And this is gonna, I feel like, be a little bit of evened out, because listening to the way you talk about it is, I mean, obviously you have to, you know, learn a little bit about the correction side of it or
Yep.
whatever. But then there's also going to be trainings on, like, how do you distinguish with, which car needs what. And
Correct.
for anybody who's listening that hasn't seen the video, I think it's awesome what you guys are going to do with us is have a car 10 years old and a car brand new
Yeah.
that are basically the same car, same model, same
Yep.
car, same manufacturer, all that stuff. and go, okay, well, why would you sell this on this one and not on this one, and why would and vice versa? I think that's really cool. Like, I'm excited for that part of it, right? Of and for us to be able to be like, well, we would recommend using this product on this one and this product on that one,
Totally.
and here's why, kind of thing. Um, so yeah, I mean, I think it's really cool. You guys are opening it up and being a little more diversified with your trainings and things like that. So,
I got to
uh,
tell you, Alex, I'm actually most excited about that class. I mean, not just because you guys are coming up, but I just think it's as you heard me just mention before, give the customer what they need, not what you need them to have. I kind of want to do the same thing with the industry. Give the industry what they need, not what they need to have.
yeah,
And it's like, you can. I look at the detailing industry as like a football team or a soccer team, right? They're a team, and every service has its kind of like a position, right? If you're a mobile detailer, or you're a high end detailer, or you're a daily detailer, you're just doing car washing, right? It's all those different services make the team,
right,
right? But like if the mobile guy can be better, and the high end guy can be better, and the car washing guy can be better, it all ultimately what it does is it builds a stronger team,
exactly,
right? And so, like, what I'm really like about the ceramic coating thing is because, especially people that want to sell into getting into bigger tickets, you know, there's some crossover there in pricing, and I have luckily, I should say, fortunately, I've been able to leverage my relationships with the people who trust me, and I've been able to get confirmation from hey, can I get a new car for a demonstration? Yeah, Matt, you need a new car? Pick whichever one you want. Like, I'm elated that they even trust me to take one of
yeah,
their new
yeah,
cars, right? But
yeah,
like, it's like that's stuff that's taken me years to build. And so
right,
with this class, I think that the educational pieces behind it will be very valuable, because you'll be able to see a paint system from 10 years ago versus a paint system from today, where we can
right,
identify the difference of what new paint looks like compared to old paint, really kind of evaluate the labor hours that might be involved with one or the other, and see how the components are going to react to ceramic coating, right? I mean, hey, ceramic coating new trim might react a little different than ceramic coating 10-year-old trim,
exactly,
right? And old wheels, new wheels, and all this stuff. And so
yeah,
the visualization of all that stuff, I think it's going to provide a lot of value. And I think the price point of the class is very good. So if you're listening to this podcast, check out the webpage glossuniversity.com and take a look at that, because I think we're going to keep that class small, like 8 students. That's the goal this year, is to keep
nice,
to do more classes, right? Doing more frequency of classes with a smaller group,
right,
right? So you're still getting the group kind of feel, but we're still going to have multiple instructors, and it'll just be a kind of more of an intimate environment for the group. So
yeah,
I'm super excited about that, and I think if you guys got any questions, you guys know how to find me on my social medias and stuff like that, and I'm always open to talking to people about this stuff. So I'm looking forward to it. But I guess I could say to anybody that is listening to this episode as the new year gets underway, I would say, take some risks, right? Because if you've been holding back and keeping the belt tight, which I understand, I think sometimes if you just jump, you'll realize that, hey, I'll land on my feet. It's not so bad, you know.
yeah.
I mean, that's kind of the message that I want to tell everybody.
And I think in part of taking that risk, you got to do the work. You got to do the
You got to do
research.
the work.
You got to look into the brands. You got to look into the companies. Like, who's behind them? Are they really what they are? Is it, I mean, I know we kind of didn't talk a whole lot about the whole, um, private equity, taking over the industry kind of thing. But, you have to look at, you know, some of that stuff. And listen, sometimes private equity might not be a bad thing. Sometimes it may be a good thing. Maybe a brand that could be better just needs an injection of some money,
Yeah.
to get them to where they need to be. But I think it's still good to do the research and follow the paper trails, or whatever, to find out really, you know
Yes.
who's the wizard behind the curtain.
Yeah. Oh man. You're making me think of something here as we're getting close to wrapping up. But yeah, the man behind the curtain. That's definitely, there's a lot of messages there. But I think it'll all work itself out. And I just think that if you are a detail technician that's listening to this podcast, you're a small business guy. And I think supporting the other small businesses is now more important, because these big businesses, they've come and gone. There's a bunch of now bean counters behind there, and we'll see where this all leads to. I'm kind of glad that we didn't mention some specific names, because I think it could get you and me in a world of hurt, especially me.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I want to ruffle those feathers just yet.
Yeah.
Maybe in a later date, I'll be willing. Future episode ruffling feathers. But I just, I guess maybe that's enough, is just educate yourself, arm yourself with the appropriate knowledge, right? And just do a little bit of research, just as you had just mentioned, because it's like, where are your products coming from? Who do you want to support, and what's the message that you want to, put out to the universe for your clients? So it's going to be an interesting year for for the industry. It's going to be an interesting year for me. This is a transition year where I'm kind of 50-50 between doing the service work and doing trainings. I think we got 9 events planned, and we are going to add 2 or 3 more to the year to get close to 11 or 12.
Nice.
So that's just group trainings besides all the one-on-one trainings. I have a student coming out from California next week, so I'm excited about that, and I got a lot of one-on-one trainings kind of planned for next year as well. So we'll see how 2025 gets going. I have a lot of reasons to be excited and hopeful, and a lot of reasons to be nervous. And I think that everybody listening to this podcast could probably relate, right? They're hopeful that they're going to be filled with lots of service work and lots of big tickets, but they're probably also a little nervous, like, hey, is the phone going to ring? Am I going to have a full calendar?
Let's be honest. I mean, the fact that the last couple of years have kind of proven that, obviously the future is the unknown. I mean, I look at it as, okay, I've got this week booked, but I don't have anything next week. So do I panic yet, or do I wait? Because I know all it takes is one phone call, and then, I'm good to go. And, like, that's how I kind of feel. I feel like every time I, get close to that edge, the edge extends out a little bit further,
Sure.
and some people are used to having that edge so far out that they never get close enough to it to worry about it. And I think a lot of those people are, that work isn't planned that far out.
Yeah.
And now they're closer to the edge than they've ever been. Whereas, to not sound corny or whatever, but I feel like I've been living on the edge for the last, year and a half, that like, I'm just like, whatever, we'll deal with next week when we get to next week. But right now we're making money, and that's all that matters. So
that's the song I sing every time we're at the Ring Brothers sanding and polishing one of their cars, is Living on the Edge. Because I'm always got the rotary tilted on the edge, and I'm living on the edge.
I look at it and go, that's future Alex's problem to deal with. Right now, present Alex has work to do, so let's get to it.
Well, I know we both have things to get on with our lives today. And so on that note, I think I should just say Happy New Year to you, Mr. Alex Russell.
Happy New Year to you, Matty.
I'm glad we got an opportunity to talk about this. And I know we will do another collaboration podcast before our collaboration class that we're going to do in July 26th and 27th, if I remember correctly. It's Saturday and Sunday. Check out Gloss U.
It's the perfect weekend, because Michelle's birthday is the 28th, so I can get back home and not get in trouble for being gone during her birthday.
Yeah.
Although I don't know. She might be like, that's perfect birthday present if you're not around.
Well, I'm excited. I mean, before you snap your fingers, and it'll be the summertime before you know it. So, I mean, as the new year gets underway, we got a lot of stuff happening. So, I really appreciate you. Like, I know when we started, I was kind of sleepy, and now I'm full awake as I'm engaged in this thing. So I can get on and I actually have to head over to Gloss University this afternoon to do some plumbing work. We're installing some new equipment for the upcoming year. So trying to utilize the downtime to get some things completed. So hope you have a great New Year's, and we'll see you in 2025, man.
Definitely will, buddy. Appreciate it.
All right. Take care,
Happy
Alex.
New Year, everybody else.
Happy New Year, everybody. See ya.
Later.
Bye.